Well, Reed, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Linch with a Leader. It is an honor to have you.
Hey, man, thank you for having me. Mike, it's great to be here with you and look forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I was just telling you before we went on air, I got my first exposure to Pine Cove last summer. 40,000 campers across the country. 11 physical camps? Is that right?
12.
12 now. 12 physical camps.
Just opened up Springs in Georgia.
That's right. I'll hit on that here in a second.
Yeah.
Man, you guys, and then you have 90 churches in 11 states that are participating in the Pine Cove City camps. Did you ever dream you would be doing something like what you're doing for a job?
No, I don't think it was ever my aspiration to come in and be a CEO of a large, I guess, one of the larger camping operations in the country at this point with the campers you mentioned and over 2,000 college staff and a lot of great, wonderful full-time staff. But I've never really looked for or had this goal of reaching this thing, just kind of hopefully served faithfully where I was and looked at opportunities the Lord's put in front of the Livesay family.
You know what I love is the story that you come into this with. And I want to backtrack a little bit. We use a phrase on here all the time. God never wastes our time and he never wastes our experiences.
Yeah.
You grew up in a home with a dad that was a pastor.
I did.
How did your dad doing what he did and the faithfulness of your mom? I know she worked with the ladies there at your church a lot too. How was their faithfulness and dependability doing what they did? How did that play into who you are as a leader today?
Well, I think I saw, number one, my dad and mom, when you lead a church, they started a church, Northwest Bible in Houston, Texas. And when they did that, you just see them walk through. You have all the devotionals around your table, and people, my dad's always kind of depressed when I say this, but I don't really remember any of the devotionals we did as a family. But man, do I remember seeing them work through tough things, and how they did that, I think really impacted me. How they sought the Lord, how they went through tough things, and didn't engage in the peripheral, but really just were steadfast in it as a couple. Saw them work through conflict together, which you see a lot. And I know there's coaches on this ministry. You just give a lot of extra out there, and there's the time that is given that nobody truly understands, that doesn't seem valued. And to see them work together on those things, I think really set me up and expectations up well, stepping into this role. I've been with Pine Cove now 17 years, and haven't always been the CEO. And so, it's been a crazy journey. My dad, though, and their faithfulness together with my mom and how they've done it together has really been an inspiration. I mean, they are a team.
What was the hardest part about being a PK for you? The PKs get bad labels sometimes, and sometimes they get rightful labels. And I've raised two. So what was the hardest part for you?
So you're either going to fall on the side that you're going to be compliant, or you're going to kind of, everybody thinks of the PK as the rebellious one. I felt like when I read scripture, even at a young age, it's funny, I was more of the compliant kid. Listen, if he can't manage his family, he can't manage the church. Well, that means if I'm out there misbehaving, man, my dad could lose his job.
That's right. So,
in a sense, now my brother Stephen, I don't know if he'll listen to this, he kind of saw that differently. Or interpreted that differently. And we laugh about it today. And but I would just say I enjoyed getting to know the people in the church, the older people. I've always been more drawn to, I would say, kind of an older soul kind of crowd. And I think I was able to gain a lot of wisdom from some pretty neat men in the church that really poured into me as a young man.
In such a big part of your story too was athletics. You were in the transfer portal before everybody knew there was a transfer portal. You went from Liberty, I think, to Stephen F. Austin to Baylor. And
Yeah,
so you got a full college experience, man.
I did.
I don't know if you got any money for that, but that's good, man. That's
No,
good
no,
movement.
no money. I wasn't that good. I wasn't that good.
What did athletics teach you that you use every day now? And you were a quarterback, correct?
I was, yeah.
So what
Um,
did you learn doing that you go, man, I walk into meetings now, I walk into things now, and I still use what I learned then?
yeah, I would say from an athletic, well, there's a couple things. Just showing up every day, and there's no really shortcutting, processes. And so, there's in athletics. The thing I probably pull away more from is just the influence that coaches have, leaders have in your life, is what I more look at today. Man, it's so interesting to me the things that I recall from coaches and when they said them,
Mm.
and the power of that 10-second conversation, whether good or bad, in a sense. And so I've really taken that to what I do a lot now at Pine Cove. I can remember Bob Leahy at Liberty University, our offensive coordinator, pulling me aside and saying, Reed, you have this ability to do this specific thing that is just really unique and anticipate things and throw in and all that kind of stuff. And just that moment was just such an encouragement
Mm.
to me to go, hey, you have this ability. Like, and that meant so much, just an encouraging word that here I am almost 50 years old and still haven't forgotten. That meant a lot. And so even in the trenches of summer camp, taking that type of deal just to walk alongside a young man or young woman and just say, hey, listen, I just saw you do this. That was incredible. Way to go. I just don't want to undervalue the power of those moments, because there's been many times where staff have come back and said, man, do you remember when you told me this? And I'm like, have no idea. They're like, well, that actually kind of changed my whole direction of my life in this way, or encouraged me to do this. And so just being available and not forgetting, like, these people need to be encouraged.
Mm. That's really good.
Yeah.
And I know you didn't go straight from college and you hit it. You didn't go straight to Pine Cove. You
No.
had some other business opportunities that you did. What did you learn in that season of your work? Both, and I know you were down in Orlando for a while. What were some of the lessons you learned in business that prepared you for the seat you sit in today?
So, so I started off at Arthur Anderson. For those old timers, that was a big accounting firm.
Yep.
Did some audit work for a year and a half. Discovered I didn't really enjoy accounting, but enjoyed the people and learned a lot of the financial stuff. So that was a big help to me in what I do now, just to understand what a balance sheet is, an income statement. Those kind of things are valuable just to have a basic understanding. Was never great at it, but had a broad understanding of it. I would say then I got into a business called Eurotech, actually through somebody at our church that gave me an opportunity to start up a division of Eurotech, which is a urethane technology company in the state of Florida. And so I had the whole state of Florida. So I went out there at the age of 25 and basically started a market.
Wow.
Looking up names in yellow pages, engineers, calling on them. That's what we did. And so I did that in the whole state of Florida, learned how to get in my car and, drive 5 hours for a 9 o'clock meeting, that kind of stuff. And so learning the hard work, I would say at Arthur Anderson, and then being a rep out there, developing relationships, developing a market was tough. I mean, it's the daily grind. And if you go back to sports, that's kind of the deal too. I mean, you have to have that, hey, listen, nobody's watching you. Nobody's watching you, but are you going to run that extra, sprint? Are you going to be ready? Are you going to get that next rep in when nobody's watching? So many, athletes, the successful ones, they have that internal accountability, because at some level, we all want to have accountability with other people. At some level, that's just really that between you and the Lord, if you're cheating the system or not. And so I think I learned how to work in those environments. how to grind, that grit that people like to talk about right now.
Yep.
Those are those settings where I learned it. And then, yeah, so the business there in Florida did well. I had a chance to take on a partner, actually own a franchise of Urotech out in Florida, took on ownership, developed it, really was out there a total of really close to 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so really had a 10-year career in what people would call the business world, where I got some, and even in that, I got construction experience, sales experience, and then the finance experience, which then the Lord really, my dad was speaking at Pine Cove, and Mario Zanstra, the CEO at Pine Cove at the time, said, "Hey, Reed, would you consider," kind of like after one of my first or second experiences like you had this summer, "Hey, would you consider coming and starting up this region for Pine Cove down near south of Austin?" And at first, things were going so well with our business. I was like, I don't know, kind of enjoying the golf course. You know, my dad, when I said yes, my dad goes, "Now, you know, you're not going to be getting any distributions, you know, out of the company from Pine Cove." You know, and I was like, "I know, but hey, listen, the other thing I learned from my family growing up is that the Lord provides."
That's right.
We didn't have a whole lot. I mean, starting up a church, you do not make much money, but yet we never lack for anything. And so really learned there that man, the Lord will provide, and so that was cool. But anyway, so we ended up moving out to Columbus, Texas, a small town of 3,600. You know, from Orlando, Florida. Big difference. Grew up in Houston, so here we are in a town of 3,600, and just developed some unique friendships out there. Got to see all those skill sets that I had learned over the last 10 years being put to use. I mean, talk about developing a product out in an area. Hey, you know, when you're out there doing development for a nonprofit, raising money, that you're developing relationships. I always love relationships.
Yeah.
I enjoy the people I'm with, authentically want to hear what they're doing in their work, how I can connect or how I can help, and really see myself in that relationship. Is you have to just be a good steward of those things that the Lord's put in front of you. And so that's always been fun. It's sharpened me. Some of the best ideas are from those people that have been put into play at Pine Cove, are from ideas that when I'm meeting with some business folks in the cities. So it's been really fun. But that kind of prepared me for Pine Cove, is what I would say. Didn't know at the time, but
well, you think about what would be different about you if you took the experience of starting Crier Creek. If you had left business and went straight to the CEO chair, what would you not understand about what makes Pine Cove really tick that you learned when you were hucking it around town and you were shoveling and you were digging and you were having to go grab boxes and move them and get things set up the night before everybody arrived because you just got your CO? What would be different about you as a leader now if you hadn't have had that beginning Crier Creek experience?
when you say shoveling things around, literally, I would be out there digging ditches for sewer lines, because we were in a place where we didn't have even with my construction experience, I knew how to run a level. I knew how to get out there and get out with the fellas. And I think one of the things that has benefited me most, I would say, is I really value what I would say everyone in the organization, no matter what they're doing, and I love them. Some of my favorite people are the guys that are showing up every day, maintaining what we have. They love Jesus. They love it. And I think a lot of that came from even in the locker room, to be honest with you, being able to identify, to not, with different types of people and relate to them is such an important ability these days, because people are coming in from so many different walks of life. So being able to value everyone in the organization as the same is such a big thing.
I heard you say, and I'd love to hear you talk about it a little bit more. You've got 2,000 college staff, and I heard you say in another interview, we're counselor driven. I mean, we're about those college kids, which everybody would think, well, you're about the family that comes to family camp, or you're about the kids that go to the Springs. Why would you say you're counselor driven, and what's the impact of that in how Pine Cove is set up?
Yeah, I would say there's another phrase we use, and that is our staff is our program.
That's good.
You can have a lot of different things, activities to do, but people come back year after year for our staff. I mean, our staff are our program. And so we value that a lot. I would say it's not one, the camper versus the staff probably aren't more important than the other. Our mission is that we would inspire campers to walk intimately with Jesus and equip college staff to change the world. Both those things need to be happening. Inspire.
That's so good.
Okay. And so what I would tell you is the thing that happens first is we need to find those college staff. The college staff serve, love these kids, love these families in an extraordinary way that inspires the families and the kids to go, you know what, that we give them, hopefully through those college staff, a picture of what it looks like to live a life that's not about you, which is kind of a big problem right now. And the joy that can be found in that. And when they see that, it's inspiring. And you know, I'll tell you this with our college staff, people, that is the one question I get. You know, we hired 2,100 college staff this last summer. They're like, how do you convince 2,100 college students that have internships they need? How do you convince them to come work at a camp where it's a lot of the times hot? One of the most difficult things they're going to do in their entire life is step into a cabin of 7 to 8 young people and try to lead that for a week 24/7. Good luck, right? Where you're absolutely exhausted every week and you're doing it week after week after week. Why in the world would they come back? I would tell you that Pine Cove is a little bit different than a lot of camps. We don't have a coffee shop for our staff to go hang out at. We have really a walk alongside ministry. You know, if there's a ministry that's similar to on the field and coaching and walking alongside players, that's the way that we want to do discipleship and equipping. When somebody's struggling, we want to walk alongside them, but we don't want to sit down. You know, we do sit down with them, but we want to point them to the Word. We want to point them to where they can find strength when they leave Pine Cove. And then the craziest thing is at the end of the summer or at the end of the half after they've worked, we sit down and we go through an evaluation with them. And we tell them, man, these are the things you killed it in, and these are the things that really you need to work on. Now, these are the best of the best that we're hiring. Yep. Nobody ever told them they need to work on certain things in their life. Parents, this was Reed Livesay coming out of high school, where he was the quarterback, led worship, the pastor's kid that everybody likes. Like, man, my experience at camp was exposing those areas, man, honestly, where I needed Jesus.
Yep.
And I think the value of the coaching and the evaluation our young people are desperately need, and yet parents and people are afraid to give it because they're afraid of losing them. But yet it's what keeps them coming back because they see the value in it, and they grow. My son, who would be the last person in a lot of ways you think would work at camp because he's kind of he's quieter, more reserved. He's 6'5", just a lot of fun, but just more reserved. You think of camp kids is crazy. And it was cool to see him engage camp. And his comment to me after second summer, he's like, I just can't believe how much I grow.
Wow.
And that's why they come back, because they grow. And it's not because, you know, a lot of times we're concerned that they have a good time, but what these young people are craving is growth. And on the coaching front too, right? I mean, I can see that being something that coaches would almost be afraid with this new generation of athletes to really tell them where they're not good at. But truly, they will appreciate it at the end of the day.
I saw it. In fact, I made I did a whole beginning of a sermon back in the summer when I got back from there about the want to get to. You know, I pulled up and listen, I pack like a woman. So I've got more stuff in my car. I had no idea what to bring. I had gone to the grocery store and bought tons of waters, and I brought enough clothes that I could have been gone 4 weeks, and they're all in my car. And I was just going to walk back and forth every day when I figured out I just never been before. So I didn't really know what I needed. And they unloaded that car, put it all away. And I said, you didn't have to do that. They said, no, I know we get to do it. And genuine. And I was week 9. So, I mean, we're tail end of the summer by the time I got there, I think I was on the newbies list, and man, these guys, they crushed it. And seeing a 20 something walk around without their phone in front of them, and they said, no, we get them on the weekends. And I was like, how do you like that? And they said, it's fine. We love it. It's great. It's sort of nice. You see how much you miss in life when you got your phone in front of you, and just sitting down having conversations with them at dinner. You guys, you not only hire the best, I think they all got better as every week went. It really is amazing. And what would you tell a leader in business, and they're just trying to hire 5 20-somethings? What would you tell them or encourage them about those that they're about to hire? Because we hear all the bad. What are some of the good things, if they'll look for it, they'll see in them?
Yeah, I just think, like, I go back to that they want to be invested in. I think they want to be a part of community. They want that. It's kind of a weird spot right now because you're hiring and they're like, well, can I work out of my house? Can I do this? I think, you want to create a culture where people want to be together. They want to learn. This is the last 2 or 3 years where people have been kind of alone in a lot of ways. They're getting back. And I think the people that are willing to take that risk in the sense of, hey, I want you to be around me because I want to grow you. I think that could be a great thing. The other thing I would just say to business, I get to rub shoulders with a lot of families, obviously out of family camp. And I get dads that come up to me like, man, how do I get to do what you do? I mean, you just have so much purpose in what you do. And I almost want to come up with my own podcast. It's The Grass Isn't Greener on the Other Side.
Right. That's right.
Listen, to think that I had any different opportunity when I ran a business that I have right now is just, it's not right. Listen, I have the same opportunity each day to do what I do and to encourage people, to sharpen people, that every single one of the business guys out there has every single day. I truly believe that to the core. We have a 160 full-time staff. We have a lot of people. So a lot of my day is spent in the context of people. And when you run businesses, you're getting to certain levels, you're dealing with people most of the time. So you have the same opportunity every day. And I just think that's something I want dads to recognize in their work, is those things that we talked about earlier, the encouragement, the sharpening, where people really know you care because you're willing to take a risk and tell them, man, this is something I see that really, if you could work on this, man, it would really help you. They may not like it at first, but they're going to come back and they're going to go, thank you. Do it. I just needed to hear it. And those are the things that we have in the business world. If I ever left Pine Cove, I wouldn't go, the question wouldn't be, what organization, are you going to stay in nonprofit or profit? I don't really see those two. I would just go, listen, I want to go work with some people I want to go work with.
That's good.
Whether business or whether that's in ministry, that's the most important thing to me, is who I get to do it with. So
how do you keep your why out in front? I had John Gordon on a couple of years ago, and John made a comment. He said people don't burn out because of what they do. They burn out because they forget why they do what they do. How do you keep your why out in front every day? I mean, I'm talking to you right now and you're in Atlanta. You have to travel. You have to be gone. Life's not easy. In any field, life's not easy. How do you keep your why out in front?
Well, I think I try to stay engaged with some young college guys as well. Just because I feel like that's part of what we do. And I want to be engaged with it. When I get to talk with people in fundraising meetings with families, I get to hear their stories of what God's doing. And so it's important to receive those and to thank the Lord for them. But it's a hard thing to keep out in front of you. It's not easy. It's not easy. The things that kind of crowd the day tend to win most of the time.
Mm.
And so keeping the why out in front of you. We did a deal 2 years ago, I think it was, where we had a deal with our organization, What's Your Why? Actually, uh, just kind of came up with this thing where we got on a call for 10 minutes. I think it was, I can't remember if we did it every morning at like 9 o'clock, but we had a different person. Why are you here at Pine Cove? And they
Wow.
shared for 10 minutes from our full-time staff why they were here at Pine Cove. Maybe we did it 3 days a week, and it was just awesome. Because as an organization, when we were going through the stuff over the last couple of years, we needed to be reminded of,
That's right.
why are we doing this?
Yep.
And why are we here? Because I can't really remember.
Yep. It's so easy to forget because not
yeah.
only do you have the demands of life and other stuff that comes your way, but it's just the natural process of distractions. It's just easy. I mean, and I'm full-time in ministry like your dad was. It's easy to forget doing what I do. I mean, you just go, well, I got to do church next Sunday. Well, yeah, you got to do more than church next Sunday. You get to tell the greatest story. You know, it's the distraction we all get into. I would love so you guys do such a great job with those college kids. And like you said, they're the best of the best. And I would agree with that. They're just stellar, top shelf. My interactions with them were phenomenal. What's the difference in hiring? So you have 160 full-time staff. What's the difference in your thought of hiring a full-time staff from a college summer staff? How similar is what you're looking for, and what might be different in what you're looking for?
That's a great question. I would say in the summer staff, we have a lot of structure.
Mm.
And so when you bring a summer staff in for 6 weeks, they can be an all-star summer staffer where the structure really helps them.
Yep.
For what we do outside of that, you need somebody that kind of almost doesn't need that much structure, because they need to be a self-starter when it comes to recruiting college staff. See, they're out right now recruiting at 160, 180 different college universities. They have to take initiative to make calls, to go, we want them following up with these staff that worked, engaging them, and then kind of going, hey, who else on your campus needs to be here? And so I would say we've kind of had that conversation recently. And the biggest thing is you kind of look for those people that need to be a little more structured.
Mm-hmm.
And so not all your crazy wild guy that was the best program guy up front isn't necessarily going to be your best full-time staff.
Yep. That's a great answer. And I would totally agree with that. And I think that applies for all of us, as we're looking for that person who comes alongside of us. The self-starter in the world that we live in is so important. How do you, what's a trait of somebody that when you meet them, you go, I think this is a great, even in an interview, what's something you're looking for a person to say that gives you the right trigger? Yeah, I bet there's something down their engine room that keeps them rolling.
Gosh, that's a great question. Really for me, I want to hear when I'm talking with them, I want to hear some experiences or situations of maybe bringing some order to chaos.
Mm.
I think that's a big deal. And so, asking for some moments where things were a little went astray and kind of, what did you do? How did you do it? Because that shows the real ability to not just be part of it, but kind of lead it and then bring structure to it. See it. That's
good. That's really good. I've heard you say in another interview, you're definitely more of a behind the scenes guy. You don't feel the need to have to always be up front, always have the mic in your hand. How do you do that? Because vision casting is so big. To lead an organization that large, and you and I were talking about before we went on air, it's got to filter down. That vision's got to filter down. How do you lead doing vision casting without having to be Mr. Mr. rah-rah, charismatic, got to be the life of the party guy. How have you found that to be true for you?
I just feel like I'm myself. So when we have our staff meeting or a staff retreat and I'm up there casting vision, we have a conversation just like this. It's not where I'm trying to convince you through my speech that you should follow me. You're going to sense the passion from within that are we in this together? And so I just let my natural communication style be who I am. Like, it's who I am. I can't try to be somebody else. And there was my predecessor, Mario Zanstra. Man, he was an incredible storyteller. You know what? I'm not a good storyteller. You know who is? My dad. He's another great storyteller. I need to be Reed. And because they believe it because it's who I am. If I'm trying to get up there being something else, it's not going to be believable. And so that's worked for me. I've gotten more comfortable with being up front. And honestly, for Pine Cove, I would just tell you it's a unique organization. It's not about any one person. At one point, Reed's going to leave this deal, and I'm going to hand it off to somebody, another group of people or leadership team. And it's never been about one person, which makes it really unique and awesome at the same time. It's Mike, you've been to Pine Cove. Guess what? It's as much yours as it is mine, bro. And I really believe that. It's one of the coolest things I've learned, I would say, over the last 3 years. Guys that have a tendency to step into leadership roles tend to be a little more controlling. Just be honest. There's some good things that come with that, and there's some things that are challenging, no matter where we are, whether in the home or whether that's
right.
In the organization. And what I've learned, what I really had to come to grips with through the challenging times of COVID and potentially losing and handing back a lot of money to a lot of people that we really didn't have, okay, was that this is not my camp, listen, this is the people's. If we're not valuable enough for them to go, hey, listen, we want to help you get through this, then maybe we shouldn't be here. And to give that up was tough. To give up control of that, man, it got real. And that was where the Lord just said, hey, listen, I don't even want to say, do you trust it? Like, Reed, you need to give this up. And it was like a kind of one of those Jerry Maguire moments where in the middle of the night, I just kind of got up and said, you know what, Lord, this is yours and this is theirs. And if Pine Cove doesn't exist after this, that's okay. But how we're going to handle this situation is going to bring you glory. It's not going to be one that tries to manipulate it to try to get through. It's going to be one that's open and honest and real. And so, man, it was a scary moment to tell everybody if they wanted all their money back, they could have it. But this is the situation we're in, and it's your decision. I mean, that's like, oh my goodness.
And give everybody an idea, because I've got a follow-up question to this. Give everybody an idea of how many people that is that you're making that offer to. This isn't like 20 kids who signed up to go to youth camp.
46,000. And so basically what had happened, Mike, in the history, like in Pine Cove, is people pay for camp during the year.
That's right.
Okay. We spend that money getting ready for them to come to camp. So when the COVID hit in March and April, May, and things started shutting down, we had already spent that money to get ready for them, hiring staff all over, getting camps ready for them to be at camp. And then if they chose not to come, we said, hey, we're going to give you your money back, which we didn't really have. So we were looking at $15, $20 million of debt that we were going to have to go into to help families, which was the appropriate thing to do, which was the right thing to do. Did not feel comfortable.
No, no. I think I understand why.
I mean, but the Lord just said, and it was just this moment of, it has never been more freeing now to know that I'm here to serve the families and the staff and the kids. This isn't for us to have great jobs. We're here for them and we're going to be here proclaiming truth as long as the Lord lets us, but that's not going to be forever. So let's do it well.
That's amazing, Reed. That is a great, and I think every business leader, male and female, shudders at that thought, because that's real. I mean, that's real life. That's real stuff. That's not in a book or a conference. That's what you live through. But also in that year, you guys got a call that was a game changer. Your latest physical camp, you got a call. And this is out of curiosity because I don't know the answer to this. Was the call you got from the Georgia Baptist prior to you making that decision about the money, or was it after you made that decision about the money, about giving it back?
It was after. It was after. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Where we are now, what the Lord's doing, to come out of COVID, looking at a $15 to $20 million debt, to coming out with a new camp completely paid for, open. You can't make it up. And that's what we pray for, that the story would be something that we can't take any credit for.
That's right. Well, it's so funny when that whole thing happened. So for those of you guys that are outside the state of Georgia, there's a facility that's very well known in the state of Georgia. The Georgia Baptist Conference Center is what it was known as for years, up in Toccoa, Georgia, that had fallen. Georgia Baptist had gotten to the point they weren't going to be able to keep it open. They weren't keeping it open. The hard part for me, and I shared this with your team, I had gone to camp there since I was in 6th grade.
Wow.
So every summer camp, and since I've been in ministry, I had gone there the past 30 summers leading a camp there. 7 out of 10 of the most incredible my moments with God were at that camp. And
awesome.
So to pull back on there when we came up and visited, Todd took me up there. I mean, I almost shuddered because it's holy. I mean, that's holy ground for me. And, the Lord was able to speak to you because there was no cell service. So that was always a positive. And to watch what you guys have done with it and the investments you're making in it, it made me so proud to see where it's headed. So thank you for being faithful with what you did, because I believe that the Lord returned that faithfulness to you guys with stewarding that property.
Well, thank you. We kept the dome out there so that when people come back, they remember. We had to fight for that dome because everybody wanted to tear it down. I was like, people need, when they come back, that's such a unique feature. They remember the dome. We want the Lord has used this property for 80 years. We're going to keep it because it's going to be kind of that Ebenezer, like this is when people come back. So it just makes me glad to know that it was worth it keeping the dome.
Yeah, man, it was a beautiful thing to pull up and see. There was a lot of other beautiful things on that campus other than the lake. So it definitely needed it. I always called it an old granny house. It just needs somebody to love on it. And you guys brought money. You were a young couple, brought some money into it. And man, it's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mike. All the glory to him. And it's been a wonderful journey.
Well, you've got such a unique story, and your influence, from just being a leader, but you and your wife, and you've got 2 kids in college. When you look back at your journey, and one day you're going to hang up the CEO hat, you're going to be done with that. When your wife, your sweetheart from high school, from Texas, and y'all have grown together now all these years, and your kids are now on a podcast telling a story to somebody about their dad, or your wife's on talking about her husband. What do you want them to say about you? What would you say?
Oh, goodness. I wasn't expecting this question. I would hope that they would. I think this is what I appreciate most about my dad, and that I hope that I'm always still learning and hopefully still open to the Spirit changing areas in my life where I need to be changed, and still being moved every day by the gospel. I mean, that's the thing I respect most about my dad today, is even at the age of 74, he's still being sanctified. Like he's not there yet, and yet still open to it and receptive. And I want to be that as well. I'm not a perfect leader, and it really frustrates me when I let people down. But I hope that I'm always open and humble enough to receive it and to let the Holy Spirit work on my heart where it needs to be worked on. That's it.